All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for spending your lunch hour with us to learn about the very important topic of how on earth will I be able to pay for my long-term care? November is Long-Term Care Awareness Month. So it makes it the perfect time to discuss this topic and to start thinking about these issues. My name is Bobby Miloro. I'm the founder of Miloro Law, and our motto here at Miloro Law is we get your ducks in a row, protect your family, and save your dough. And we do that through the practice areas of estate planning, special needs planning, Medicaid long-term care benefits, guardianship, and probate. And with me today is a special guest and a friend of mine and colleague, Renzo Barreto with Coastal Wealth. Renzo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Um,
Renzo's a financial advisor since 2010, blending his passion for helping others with a deep advocacy for mental health. After experiencing a personal loss, he became devoted to breaking stigmas and educating clients on the powerful connection between financial and mental wellness. His mission is simple yet profound: to empower others to achieve both financial clarity and emotional peace. Renzo works with three types of clients: individuals and families focused on building wealth, protecting their assets, and enhancing their financial literacy, and investors seeking to grow their portfolios through diverse and strategic opportunities, professionals and families preparing for life's next chapter as they transition into retirement. So we're very fortunate to have the Renzo with us today to discuss some options as we plan ahead to be able to afford long-term care for either us or for our loved ones. So let's get started. So at first, I'm going to just look at big picture and approach getting your ducks in a row for long-term care needs. So some people think that Medicare covers long-term care. It does not. Medicare is health insurance. Right now, it's available for seniors over 65. And it covers some short-term care and rehabilitation after a surgery or after an injury. For the first 20 days, it covers 100% of rehab. And as of day 21, the coverage goes down to 80%. Some people have supplemental health insurance, which will pick up that 20% that Medicare is not covering anymore. That can go on for a maximum of 100 days. Now, 100 days, that's not a minimum, it's a maximum. The person also has to be showing improvement because it's only for rehab. So, and after 100 days, even if they are still showing improvement, Medicare cuts you off. There's no more coverage because now it's not a short-term situation. Now it's a long-term situation. There's three types of long-term care. This can be a home health aide that comes to your home. It can be an assisted living community where you have your own apartment, but you're in a community that's fully staffed, prepares your meals, has some level of support for people that can still do some things on their own. And then there's skilled nursing, which is people refer to as a nursing home. It's more like a hospital setting. These are people who need 24/7 care, and they need doctors and nurses, not so much aides to help them. Any one of those scenarios is very expensive. Renzo is going to explore this more in his portion of the discussion today. But just to give you a snapshot, the average cost in Florida for all of those forms of long-term care is about $60,000 per year. The low end is the home health and the assisted living, ranging from around high 50s, low 60s, to the nursing care over $100,000 per year. So very, very expensive. And it's not really sustainable for most people to pay for that on a monthly basis. So how can we pay for it? One option is to have a lot of money saved, right? You have a good retirement, 401k, healthy investment portfolio, good savings, and you can private pay for your long-term care. You can cut a check every month for $5, $6, $10, $15,000 per month and have enough to sustain that over a period of time. Another option, which Renzo will discuss in detail, is long-term care insurance. And a third option is the a government benefit called Medicaid long-term care benefits. Some people, and I will discuss that in my portion of the presentation today, is the Medicaid long-term care benefit. Most people use all three. We cobble this together to afford this care. You're paying some out of pocket, you've got some insurance coverage, and you also can have the Medicaid long-term care benefit. So using all three, helps people to afford the cost. And now let's hear from Renzo about the long-term care insurance options available to you.
Thank you so much, Bobby, for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well today. As Bobby mentioned before, my name is Renzo Barreto. I'm a financial advisor, investment advisor at Coastal Wealth. Just to give everybody a little bit of brief background, as Bobby said, I've been practicing since 2010. And one of the unique things about the firm that I work for is that we have something called open architecture. And what that basically means is that whatever solution that I need to find for a specific client, I'm not restricted to any one company. So I think that's a really important thing. I can give you an unbiased opinion about what the best solution may be for whatever it is that you're looking to accomplish. That being said, today we're going to talk a lot more about long-term care insurance and how to pay for long-term care. So that being said, just keep in mind that this is an for educational purposes and informational purposes only. I'm not a CPA, so I don't give any tax advice, and I'm not an attorney. So when it comes to estate planning, elder law, and things of that nature, individuals like Bobby are the people to go to, not myself. All right, so let's begin. What is long-term care insurance? So long-term care insurance essentially is a policy that one can purchase that actually will reimburse you when you need it most. So what does that mean? You've got to actually be able to qualify for this to be able to use it. And that basically means that we have things called activities of daily living. These activities of daily living consist of bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, so that's getting in and out of bed or a chair, eating, and continence. If for whatever reason we're unable to perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, that's when long-term care insurance would be activated, and we can use the pool of money that we've purchased through the policy to be able to pay for the care. That being said, long-term care insurance is also based on a couple of different things. One is age. So the younger that you are, the cheaper, theoretically speaking, it'll be. And the other thing is health. It's something that in most cases you have to qualify for. All right. So when you need help with activities of daily living is when these policies will activate, as I just mentioned before. You cannot, when you're not able to perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living for at least 90 days, it's usually when it kicks in. And as mentioned before, the 6 activities of daily living are there. Conditions like Alzheimer's, dementia, and other severe cognitive issues, though, usually trigger the benefits a little bit earlier, and it has to be doctor certified. I get the question all the time, does this have to be proven? The answer is yes. And I guess most cases we're trying to prevent fraud and things of that nature, but it's got to be doctor certified that one does need care and cannot perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living. Now, in terms of the elimination period is the period of time in which the policy actually does not activate to where you actually are going to start to receive the funds. This can be anywhere from 30 to 90 days. So for those 30 to 90 days, you have to come out of pocket to be able to start paying for the care. This is really important in my discussions with clients a lot of times because we talk about 3 different areas. And those areas are protection, savings, and growth. And when we talk about protection like long-term care insurance, it coincides with having liquid savings in the bank or other places to be able to cover the period of time that is the elimination period. All right, so why is long-term care insurance so important? 5 different reasons. First and foremost, it protects your retirement savings. I always tell people, envision your retirement savings needing a fence around it to protect it. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people who are not adequately prepared for a long-term care case may have to actually start utilizing their retirement assets. As you imagine, retirement assets are typically for your retirement. So we're saving all these years during our accumulation phase to be able to have enough money to be able to save, to be able to live during retirement. If either one of the spouses becomes sick or if you're by yourself and single and you become sick and have to start to exhaust your retirement assets, and all of a sudden, after you need care, things improve in your situation and you're able to live a better life and you're able to live on your own, you may run into a situation where you find yourself running out of retirement assets early. The number one concern for retirees is running out of money prematurely. All right. The number two reason why long-term care insurance is so important is it allows you to maintain choice and control. It's funny, we were just talking, Bobby and I, about, there's different types of people who procrastinate or who really overly prepare and so forth. I think it's kind of like the same thing here. When you overly prepare regarding your financial plan within your means, within your budget, and you work with professionals like myself or Bobby, you now find yourself having the flexibility to pivot and maintain control and choice as far as what, decisions you can make if, God forbid, you have a long-term care need. Whether that's you wanting to have care at your home or wanting to go to an assisted living community, or having to go to a specialized facility. If you've been able to actually properly save for this and maybe utilize long-term care insurance, it gives you the ability to make those decisions and you have the control. Number three is reducing the burden on your family. Aside from financial stress, there's two other components here that I think really are important to discuss, and that's the mental health stress as well as the physical health stress. I can tell you from experience, I have family from Peru, and my grandmother had passed away from dementia. And it was a huge burden on my family from a mental health standpoint, worrying about, is she doing okay? Is she getting the care that she needs and so forth? In addition to that, if you cannot afford care, it may be one of your loved ones that has to take care of you. There's a huge physical component there where you're constantly dealing with physical stress. Statistics show that caregivers actually age quicker if they do not have any help. So that's where long-term care insurance can help you pay for at least some care, if not all the care, depending on your situation. The other thing is you've got to plan well ahead of time. This is something that you've got to get well before you know you need it. A lot of times, unfortunately, I'll get a phone call asking me, is it too late for me to get long-term care insurance for a loved one? And in most cases, it is, because they're already showing signs of needing care where they can't perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living. All right, so it's really important to do this ahead of time. And lastly, peace of mind. When you have all your ducks in a row, like Bobby always talks about, you know that you can, sit back and relax, knowing that whatever comes your way, you'll have the flexibility and the strategies in place to be able to address whatever obstacle comes your way up from a financial component. All right. So I always ask this question: has someone ever experienced a long-term care event in their family? And the reason why I ask this question is that most people decide on purchasing long-term care or planning ahead if they've had an experience before. Statistics actually show that. And I can actually share within my own family, it did take my grandmother being diagnosed with dementia for my respective family to actually move forward with the discussion of long-term care. So it's really, really important that not only those who have experienced the unfortunate obstacles of long-term care, but those who have not, understand that this is something that needs to be done well before you know you need it. All right, so here are some statistics that I think are important. 70% of adults age 65 years or older are going to require some sort of long-term care at some point in their life. All right, so think about that. That's a very high percentage. And 65 years of age is really not that old if you think about it nowadays. It's amazing that people are living to, on through their 90s and so forth. So over 65 people of 65 years and older, 70% of them are going to need some sort of care, right? Medicaid only covers 42% of long-term care costs. So how are we going to supplement that? That's an important topic. And then $475 billion is the number that Americans have spent annually on long-term care. Now, these are all numbers from the year 2024, but $475 billion is a lot of money. All right. And the average length of stay for long-term care is just over 3 years. And just over 20% of residents will require care for 5 years or longer. And that's really important because we'll get into a discussion in terms of different ways of actually doing this from a long-term care insurance perspective and the different options that you may have. All right, so Bobby talked about this a little bit. The average here in Florida for the year 2024 is $60,000 if you need care. If you need home care, $63,000, assisted living, $56,000, and a nursing home, almost $120,000. Just like everything else, cost will go up. So in the next slide, we'll see in 2034, we're going to go from 60,000. Alan, if you don't mind, thank you, sir. We'll go from 60,000 to $82,000 as far as the average in the state of Florida. My personal opinion is this is a very low ball number. $60,000 right now, depending on the quality of care, the community that you choose to go to, if you want to go to an assisted living or if you want at-home care, sometimes actually will cost more than the actual average that we see this in 2024. And with inflation and the way things are going, this number of $82,000 could be much higher. So some potentials for long-term care, potential solutions for long-term care, are the following. Historically speaking, we've had traditional long-term care policies. Those policies are generally lower in initial premiums, but the downfall with that is that over time, premiums can actually rise. So there have been many instances that I've heard of where people have purchased a long-term care policy and they got a notice in the mail stating that their premiums were going to go up 10, 20, 30, 40%. And sometimes one can pay for that, the increased premiums, but other times they no longer can afford that and they end up having to lose that policy. So that's kind of the drawback with that. Now, I will say traditional long-term care insurance policies are not as prevalent as they used to be. I would argue that now some of the traditional long-term care policies are more hybrid linked type of policies, which is the next potential solution. And these type of policies are a hybrid between either life insurance or annuities with long-term care coverage. So very important. They are not life insurance and they are not annuities for the purpose of life insurance leaving behind money to your loved ones or annuities creating a lifetime income for yourself. This is really specifically designated for long-term care purposes. So to give you an example, what ends up happening here is, and typically you'll have policies that are built around a life insurance chassis where you need to get underwritten for a certain amount of money. So let's say it's $150,000 you get underwritten for and you get approved for. And let's say that the monthly benefit is $5,000. All right. And you go on care for 1 year. That's $60,000. And let's say that one passes away. If there's money left over, we take the $150,000, subtract that by the $60,000 exhausted, the family will receive $90,000 in a death benefit. So what's cool about this is if you don't use it, someone benefits from it typically, whether it's your loved ones if you pass away before you exhaust the entire amount, or if you decide to cancel it, which obviously we don't recommend, you're not going to receive dollar for dollar. A lot of times you'll receive about 25 to 30% of what you put in, but you know that there's something there. There is a cash component, and I stress that the cash component is not to be utilized for anything. So for those people who are aware of how life insurance works, cash value life insurance, it is not the same thing. This needs to be a pool of money designated for long-term care. And that being said, this is a little bit more expensive than traditional long-term care, but there are a lot of different options that you can add to this, like inflation riders and something called continuation of benefits, where you could actually have lifetime benefits with certain companies. The third option here is also life insurance with long-term care riders. All right, so there's a lot of flexibility with this. So if you have cash value life insurance, the purpose that typically people will purchase life insurance is to leave behind money to their loved ones. It's just a replacement of income when someone passes away. But with these policies, there is also a cash component. I have mixed opinions about this, but I think it does fit in certain situations. And the reason why I say that is because it gives you a lot of flexibility where you almost have life insurance and long-term care coverage all in one. However, people have to understand that if you have these policies and you start utilizing the cash while you're living, all right, there is a chance that if you do have a long-term care event, you're going to start to jeopardize the daily or monthly benefit that you have allotted for in the future. So it's important that, you understand that if you use it, beforehand, you could possibly lower the benefit, if not exhaust the long-term care benefit. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll take a look at a specific life insurance with long-term care rider specifically for the purpose of long-term care. Obviously, every situation is a little bit different. And then regarding this, long-term care benefits are limited to the death benefit side, and riders add cost. And then lastly, for those who typically cannot qualify from a health perspective, because it is something that you need to qualify for from a health perspective, annuities with long-term care riders can be very, very powerful tools. The way this works, and with annuities, the whole purpose of that is to create guaranteed income. So a lot of times these annuities will give you guaranteed income for life. And the purpose of purchasing those type of annuities is to supplement your different buckets of money that you have so that you can live the type of retirement that you're looking to live. But it's nice to know that there's a feature there that if there's a long-term care event, it'll kick in and give you a little bit more money than what the income is. So an example is if you're receiving $3,000 a month in income, depending on the company, depending on the feature, and these things are fluid and they change quite a bit. You could receive, instead of $3,000 in income, you could receive $4,500 in income for long-term care purposes. So it is another solution. All right. So there's two different types of long-term care plans. There's indemnity plans, and then there's reimbursement plans. The indemnity plans give you a lot of flexibility in the sense that when you purchase these policies, if the benefit is for $6,000, like it says in this example, when you go on care and you qualify, you will receive $6,000. So if for whatever reason the care costs $4,000, you still keep the extra $2,000 to utilize for whatever it is that you want to utilize it for. All right, so that's really cool that you have a lot of flexibility. There's no need to submit receipts for every expense. The only downfall is that these are usually a little bit more expensive, and some states regulate how excess benefits can be used. All right. The following option is reimbursement. Reimbursement plans are a little bit different. In that same example, if you purchased a plan that gives you a monthly benefit of $6,000, if the care that you need after you submit all the receipts is $4,000, $4,000 is the amount of money that you will receive. You will not receive the full $6,000. So it doesn't give you the flexibility to keep the $2,000 in this example and do what you please with it. The pro on this is that it's a little bit cheaper than indemnity plans. I believe that both plans are actually good, and I always tell clients that having something is better than having nothing. So it's a case-by-case basis. A lot of times when we talk about recommendations, it's based on a budget as well. But it's nice to know that you have two different types of plans. One where you have to show receipts and you get reimbursed, and the other one where you know that you paid for $6,000 of benefit and you're going to get that regardless of whatever the care costs. All right. So that being said, the question that I always ask people is, if you needed care tomorrow, how would that affect your family? Would it affect them physically, financially, and emotionally? And I ask that question all the time because a lot of times, just like a lot of different strategies that we have in the financial industry, there are a lot of stigmas associated with. Maybe someone had a policy where they had a bad experience or so forth. A lot of those things have been fixed over the years. And I always tell people it's better to be prepared than not be prepared, because although your family is up for the challenge of taking care of you, maybe physically at the time when you need care, they're not going to be able to. Financially, they're not going to have the means to be able to do so, or emotionally, it's just going to be too taxing for them. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton to Bobby and let her take over.
Great, Renzo, thank you. I meant to let everybody know we will be taking questions at the end. So if you have questions, please, you can pop them in the chat if you would like, and we'll read them off at the end. Or you can raise your hand and we'll discuss your questions when we have some time at the end. We would like this to be interactive. We just want to make sure we cover all the material. So, and I know I recognize, some of the folks in the audience today, they're in the same situation that I am, which is we're dealing with our parents' long-term care needs, right? We have seen the writing on the wall. We have seen the future. And so that makes us pause and be concerned with, okay, well, when I get there, if I'm lucky enough to age, and if I need long-term care in the future, how am I going to do better than my parents did? Because a lot of us are kind of scrambling. We're in that situation that Renzo mentioned where we're, emotionally taxed, financially taxed, and it's a difficult situation. So when we do estate planning, long-term care planning, anything like that, We're doing it not so much for us, but for our loved ones to make their lives easier because we don't want to be a burden. So, I know that a lot of us are in the same boat. So let me talk about another option in addition to long-term care insurance and your savings that can help cover some of these costs. It's a government benefit called the Medicaid Long-Term Care Program. It picks up where Medicare leaves off. I mentioned earlier that Medicare's health insurance, it does not cover long-term care. Medicaid covers a portion of long-term care costs. The average savings at home or in an assisted living community through this program is about $25,000 per year per person. The average savings in a nursing home are much higher because the cost is much higher. You can easily save over $100,000 per year through the Medicaid program. Most people in nursing homes utilize this benefit. There are two main types of Medicaid. One covers people that are either in their own home with a home health aide or living in an assisted living community. The other benefit covers people who reside in a nursing home. The nursing home benefit is called ICP Medicaid, which stands for Institutional Care Placement. It pays the full nursing home cost minus your income, right? So they calculate an amount of money that you can afford based on your income, whether that be Social Security, IRA, pension, whatever you're receiving on a monthly basis. That is what you would owe to the nursing home. That's your copay, your patient responsibility amount. And then Medicaid has a contract rate with the nursing home where they cover the rest of the cost based on their contract rate. The community-based Medicaid for people living at home, the way it works is Medicaid folks will assess the senior or the person that has long-term care needs. They'll decide how many hours of care they might need per week, and they'll cover the cost. So they have contracts with home health agencies. They will send an aide to your home for the approved number of hours. The problem with that benefit, I'm sure you can all guess, they never approve enough hours, right? They'll say you need 20 hours of care per week when really you need 40. So you're always supplementing that. The way it works with assisted living is they pay a stipend directly to the assisted living community, a monthly stipend. It varies a little bit based on the community and their contract. The average we're seeing right now is about $1,900 per month. So just to make the math easy, if the bill at the assisted living community is $4,900 a month and Medicaid pays $1,900 of that, your bill is reduced down to $3,000 a month. So that can make all the difference between somebody who has almost enough money to live in an assisted living community. Now, okay, and there's eligibility criteria. One is the physical needs test. Renzo discussed this. Those are the activities of daily living. You need help with some activities of daily living. On the physical side, there's also a financial component. This benefit is based on financial need. So they look at your income and your assets to see if you qualify for it. So the level of care requirements, I won't spend time on this. Renzo already covered it. Those are your 6 activities of daily living that you might need help with. And financially, the income limit that Medicaid allows goes up each year. There's always a cost of living adjustment. This will go up January 1st, but for 2025, the income limit is $2,901 per month per person. So if you earn less than that, then you qualify from an income perspective. If you earn more than that, you don't qualify, but elder law attorneys like me know the Medicaid rules very well, and we can help you qualify. There's a way to shelter your income overage, and that's through something called a qualified income trust. So if your income is above 2901, we set up a qualified income trust for you and help you qualify. The asset test is what gets most people. That never goes up. I've been practicing law 26 years and it hasn't gone up. It's $2,000 in countable assets that Medicaid allows you to have. If you have more than that, there are solutions. Again, within the Medicaid rules, legally speaking, we can still get you qualified. So there's many options available to you. Some assets, first we go through your income and assets with you or your loved one's income and assets to see what counts and what doesn't count, because not everything counts as an asset. Homestead does not count as an asset, for example. One vehicle does not count. Certain prepaid funeral plans do not count. Certain cash value life insurance policies don't count. IRAs don't count. The income counts, the RMD counts, but the principal balance doesn't. So you can still have a very healthy IRA and retirement plan and still qualify for Medicaid. And if you have countable assets, things, money in the bank, savings, investment accounts, things that weren't on that non-countable list, then there are ways that you can shelter those and still qualify. Just a couple of examples. If you have a healthy spouse, if you have a married couple, one of the members of the relationship needs Medicaid or long-term care and one doesn't, there are many things that we can transfer to the healthy spouse, get it out of the sick spouse's name so that that person can qualify. There's something called a personal services contract, which is a written agreement between the person who needs care and a loved one, where we can transfer money out of their name to the loved one's name to compensate them for the care that they're providing. There are things called special needs trusts. Sometimes we recommend purchasing an income producing property, jointly holding real estate with a loved one. And I mentioned that qualified income trust earlier. So we go through all of these options with our clients and figure out which work best for the family. You know, as Renzo touched upon, there's no perfect solution. There's no perfect, insurance product. There's no perfect Medicaid sheltering strategy, but it all is based on your needs and your risk tolerance. And so, we can always find the one that matches those needs best. So a couple of tips. I always like to give tips that you can take away from programs like this. One is Florida is unique in that it allows something called a ladybird deed. Not every state has this. Real estate is typically the most common asset to have to go through probate when a person passes away. We can avoid that by using something called a ladybird deed, which really allows you, if you own real estate, it allows you to name a beneficiary right on your deed so that title can pass to that person without having to go through probate. So we can do that when we look at your Medicaid application and your Medicaid qualification. And we recommend doing that because you don't want a probate situation, because Medicaid is a creditor. Medicaid will seek to be paid back after you pass away through a probate process. So we want to keep everybody out of probate. One way to do that's with a ladybird deed. It's a really great tool. Not all states have it, so we should all take advantage of it for sure. And then if there's one thing that you can do today, some people say, well, I'm still young and healthy, or my parents don't need long-term care yet. Is there anything I should be doing now? Well, one is you should consider long-term care insurance because it's attainable when you're young and healthy. So now's the time to do that. You can't wait, like Renzo mentioned, you can't wait until you're older or ill because it's too late at that point. The other most important document every adult over 18 should have in place is called a durable power of attorney. This, if an elderly person lacks capacity, they can't sign documents anymore, maybe they have a cognitive issue, maybe they have a physical issue, then we can't use these strategies. We can't move their money around. We can't update the deed to their home. We can't put a qualified income trust in place because they can't sign. But if their loved one, if their family members have durable power of attorney for them, they can sign on their behalf. I caution you though, because not all durable powers of attorney are created equal. Many people have come to my office, oh, I have power of attorney, I'm good, here you go. And it's a one-page, legal Zoom situation. The document actually has to grant authority to do these things, right? Our power of attorney documents are 9-10 pages long. It says, my person can set up a qualified income trust for me. My person can apply for Medicaid for me. My person can, create a ladybird deed for me. So all the sheltering strategies that I mentioned are in our power of attorney document to make sure that somebody can do this for you in the future if necessary. All right. And so this is our contact information. Please reach out to either of us for any questions that you may have, but we have some time. We'll stay on for another 10 minutes or so and field questions. So if you have any, please pop them in the chat or raise your hand. Don't be shy. So I have a question for Renzo. Do all of the long-term care insurance products have a medical underwriting component?
It's a good question. I get that frequently. So all of them, for the most part, do, with the exception of the last option that I mentioned, which is the annuity option. A lot of times that's utilized as a last case resort. So for whatever reason, someone is not able to qualify from a health perspective, and they've got enough money that they have saved and accumulated assets, we could look at kind of killing two birds with one stone and creating income for that individual that has a long-term care benefit that would be some sort of a multiplier of that income benefit.
And the way those work is you take a chunk of money and you pay it into an annuity plan, and then they pay it back to you over time monthly.
Correct. Yeah. So just a basic kind of rundown on an annuity. An annuity was created in the financial industry to be able to create guaranteed income, and the reason for that is because all of us are working very hard, and it's very difficult for us to be able to save enough money. And so what those annuities will do is they'll actually be able to guarantee that income at a higher percentage, so it takes less money to create the type of income that you need. So it's typically qualified assets or retirement assets. And then once they give you that income benefit, let's say it's $3,000, maybe they give you a multiplier on there that if you had a long-term care incident, that they'll actually give you a little bit more for the purpose of long-term care, which is a kind of a nice thing to have. All right. Bobby, I have a question for you. There's a 5-year look back period that I get asked all the time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I get asked that a lot too. That's, Google can be a blessing and a curse, right? A lot of people come in and think, oh, I can't apply for 5 years. What's this look back period I hear about all the time? That there is a look back period. For Medicaid purposes, it's 5 years. That changes depending on the legislation in effect. But it only applies to gifts. Okay, so the Medicaid rule is, listen, you can't give all your assets away and then apply for Medicaid. That we're not going to allow you to do. But none of the strategies I mentioned in the webinar today are gifting. They're a personal services contract that's allowed by the medical rules, the Medicaid rules, the special needs trust that's allowed. None of those are subject to a 5-year look back period. So it's only, you definitely should consult a professional before applying for Medicaid, because, if you try to be cute, if you try to give your money away without doing it in a Medicaid compliant way, you'll be penalized for a period of 5 years. So yeah, thanks for asking. I do get that question a lot. And just to make the math, to highlight the math for you, if the average person needs long-term care for 3.2 years is our data right now, right, Renzo? And if the average cost is $60,000 per year, that's an expense of $192,000. And that's in 2025 dollars, right? So, that's the pot of money that you need to have set aside to cover your long-term care costs and not eat into, decimate your retirement and eat into your retirement. So that's the supplemental long-term care funds that you should plan to have available.
Yeah, the other point too that I'd like to add on that is a lot of times people like to self-fund, and they like the idea of self-funding with retirement assets. And again, I'm not a CPA, I don't give tax advice, but it is not necessarily the most efficient way of going about this, in the sense that most of the qualified retirement plans are tax deferred plans, meaning that when you do retire, you're going to owe taxes on the amount of money that you pull out. So for instance, if you have $1 million saved up in a 401k or an IRA, and excuse me, you're pulling out $50,000 a year, you're going to be taxed on that based on your income tax bracket. So it's going to take you more money to be able to create the amount of money that you need, whether it's to live at retirement or for long-term care needs. There are a lot of policies out there that when you do receive the long-term care benefit, it's actually tax-free. So it can save you a lot of money in that sense as well.
That's a great benefit and a great point. Thank you. There's a question from the group, which is for Renzo. What age should someone consider purchasing long-term care insurance?
That's a good question. So when I started out in my career in 2010, I think financial planning purposes, everybody was kind of saying that at age 50 was probably the smart time for us to start having this conversation with clients. I myself have kind of moved that up 10 years. And I think from an educational standpoint, the conversation that I have with each and every one of my clients is starting out at age 40. The reason why I do that is because many times we can actually take care of the long-term care need way ahead of the time at a fraction of the cost. In your 40s, it's feasible. In your 50s, it becomes more expensive. And in your 60s, it becomes quite expensive to take care of long-term care insurance. And as mentioned before, it's not just based on age, but it's also based on your health. So as much as we all would like to believe that nothing's going to happen to us at any given point, we could have an incident where we would need long-term care. And unfortunately, a couple of years ago, I had a situation where someone in their mid-40s needed long-term care. So, I mean, it just shows that, a lot of times it's not just based on sickness either. We could be in a car accident. not have the ability to perform, 2 of the 6 activities of daily living. So the earlier the better, but I usually start having that conversation at age 40. Good question.
Perfect. And there's a question in the chat from me, which is, what's the average cost to create the durable power of attorney that I mentioned? So the answer to that's twofold. One is it's a lot less than the alternative, which the alternative is if you don't have a power of attorney in place and you get sick and you lack capacity at any point in time and your loved one can't make any decisions for you, they can't pay your bills, they can't make phone calls for you, they can't sign paperwork for you. The only alternative at that point is for your loved one to go to court and be named your legal guardian to be able to do those things for you. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. It is a very expensive, lengthy, and burdensome process for your loved one. Your loved one now has to go to court, report on every dime that they spend of yours. They're treated like a criminal. They have to go through a background check. They have to get fingerprinted, all to protect the person who's sick, which there are good reasons for those things to be in place, but it's a lot of work for the person that's stuck in that role. And it's several $1,000s to do a guardianship. On the opposite side of the coin, you can very easily come to my office and we can create a durable power of attorney document for you. Very comprehensive, Medicaid compliant, will be able to do anything that you need to do for $549. So it's money well spent, and it's a fraction of the cost of not doing it and not being able to, plan for Medicaid in the future.
And I
So
think,
thank you for that question.
yeah, I was just going to add, I think that's a great point. The one thing that it's really important that people understand, the sooner the better in all cases. If you look at the way the cost of everything is going up, things are just going to get drastically more expensive. But the other thing too is, and in any event where your family needs some sort of care, the emotional toll behind that and having to deal with all the headaches that goes around to what Bobby was just mentioning, it's just not worth it. So that's why it's really important to be able to work with professionals like Bobby and myself that kind of work together hand in hand, that kind of understand the situation of the prospective client, because we can kind of guide you through there. What's the best way to pay for this? Find money to be able to do so, and so forth, and answer all those questions that you have. It's better to be prepared adequately ahead of time than it is to kind of like reactively deal with the situation once it happens.
Yeah, and education is so important. That's why we have webinars like this, just so that you have the knowledge to be able to make empowered and informed decisions. And typically Renzo and I both can work with any budget, and find some solutions that work for you. So please take advantage of the professionals in your life and, get the information that you need and come and sit down with us and talk with us about anything that we can help with. We are here for you to help. And thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for joining us. We will send this recording to you via email so that you have it, and we will post it on our YouTube channel as well, so you can always refer back to it if you need it. Thank you for joining us today, Renzo. You're so helpful as usual, so knowledgeable. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Bobby.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.